The number one thing you could do at this moment is to break up with your anxiety. And more specifically, when you break up with your anxiety, I want you to ask yourself, who will you now start today? Will you start today confidence, appreciation, gratitude, peace, freedom, or your most favorite love, which is happiness? Who will you date? Who will you see once you break up with your anxiety? That's what we're going to talk about today. And really, we're going to talk about how to actually break up with your anxiety. What's the best way to go through that breakup? And the goal here is to help you guys to find a new version of yourself by letting go of old stories, old feelings, old traumas that you've been holding on to so that you can walk into your new purpose, your new self, and your new life. So with that being said, we're gonna go through a few points. If you guys have any questions, I always advise you guys to leave a comment. What I love about my channel is that I help everyone that leaves a comment by giving them personalized advice. So feel free to go deep and I will go deep with you on your journey. So with that being said, let's get to the first point so I can show you how to create that breakup. So something amazing I'm doing with my community is that we're actually doing a book club. And specifically what we're reading is Don't Believe Everything You Think. It is an amazing book. It's a quick book and it has so many tools that I use in my personal sessions to help my clients overcome things like anxiety. Now in chapter 1, there's a quote that the author reads. And what he says is, people have a hard time letting go of their suffering out of fear of the unknown. They prefer suffering that is familiar. Now that's the craziest things I've ever heard, right? And it really is like a relationship. I may be speaking to you right now, or you may know someone who actually has someone that they're dating who they shouldn't be seeing, someone that's bad for them, someone that's absolutely wrecking their life. But because they don't know what life is like on the other side of a breakup, they say, hey, you know what? The devil that I know is better than the devil that I don't know. And we hear that term so often that we think that it is actually normal and it's okay, and it is not. I want you guys to find what is something new that you can do at this moment that's going to help you to become a new person. Now, what anxiety wants you to do is stay safe. It wants you to stay with the familiar stuff, even if it's bad for you. And this is the first thing I want to talk to you guys about when it comes to breaking up with anxiety. The first point is that anxiety hates clarity, okay? Anxiety hates clarity. That's the main point that I want to make. When you're indecisive, when you're hesitating, when you're procrastinating, anxiety is going to be your best friend. It's going to make love to you every single night. But if you want to stop that process, I need you guys to get clear. Get clear on who you want to be. Get clear on the jobs that you want. Clear on the person that you actually want to date. There's so many things that you need to be clear on so that you can cut all the indecision that's going on in your mind and create this beam of light. This beam of light can represent the values that you have in your life. And that creates a great path. I will even say a bridge that takes you from the mountain that you're on to the mountain that you want to be on. But again, if you don't have that clarity, it's gonna be very hard for you to get from point A to point B. So in this point, guys, anxiety hates clarity. So the best way you can break up with them is just become crystal clear on what you want. Now, something that I would challenge you to do is something that I do with all my clients in individual therapy. So at the end of the year, I have them write a letter to their future selves. And in that letter, they're gonna write down a few questions, right? First question is, what has to happen in your life this year for you to feel happy with your progress, whether it's personally or professionally? That's point number 1. Point number 2 is, what are you willing to do in order to make this happen? What are you willing to sacrifice in order to have all these things come to life? And then third point is, what's one piece of advice that you want yourself to remember for this year? Now, if you're watching this video and it's like June or it's like October, right? I want you to still write this letter from a year from today. So if it's October 26th, I want you guys to go ahead and start that letter and schedule this email to be sent on that day. That's a feature you can use in iCloud, Yahoo, Gmail, any email service that you're using. Do that and it'll give you all the clarity that you need to help you to break up with your anxiety. The second point that I want to make is something that you can relate to. So if you have a cell phone and you see that cell phone go from, let's say 100% to 50%, now it's at 20%, right? In terms of battery, you notice that battery light changes, right? It goes from green to yellow. And then when it goes to 10% or less, it goes from yellow to red. And what happens is that this battery is now going on battery saver mode. It's basically in this preservation mode where it's only going to do what's required so that it doesn't overextend itself. Because if it did, it then wouldn't have the energy it needs to do the important things like making a phone call when you're in an emergency or maybe FaceTiming someone or whatever it is. Well, here's the thing, guys. We are like that as well. When anxiety comes to us, it's draining all of our energy and it's convincing you that you do not have enough energy to go and take that extra, let's say, lap around the park if you're going for a jog, or go and do that extra video if you're doing a podcast like this, right? It convinces you that you just don't have enough energy, it's not enough time, all these different things. And what's funny about this is when I hear this as a therapist, right? So if we're sitting in a therapy session and I hear a client says, I just didn't have time, or even worse, I'm a procrastinator, instantly I say, you're BSing me. And the reason why is because you have time. And you've shown this when you go and watch your favorite movies, you go to your favorite restaurants, or even worse, when you show up for your friends who wouldn't show up for you in the same way, right? You do have time, you do have energy. It's just that when it comes to things that you want to do, right? Things that would make you alive, things that would make you happy, for some reason or one other, we come up with an excuse, and that excuse is often we don't have the time. Anxiety loves laziness. And that's the second point that I want to make. When you're lazy, when you're comfortable, again, when you're hesitating, anxiety feeds off of that. And the reason why is because it knows that you're going to be safe. One of the worst things that happened to us as humans is that we got introduced to things like fear, right? Danger. You know, what's funny is when I was talking to my book club last night, I said it's interesting how my son, who's 2 years old, right? So a toddler, he doesn't have any fear. And to his detriment, I have to kind of watch him because he thinks he can fly down the stairs like Superman and not be hurt. Well, that's not the case. That's not life, right? But at that age, it's interesting that you're able to see how someone can be so fearless. Someone who isn't tainted with the inner critic, negative thoughts, or any of those things, right? It's a beautiful thing. But what happens to us as we get older is that inner critic starts to develop. And now it starts to tell us that if you go and cross the street, there's a chance you will get hit by a car. And I always use that example because anxiety, in some cases, it can be helpful. It's just that everything isn't a life or death situation, but our mind makes us think that. That's why we have become lazy. That's why anxiety loves when we're lazy, because it thinks that, hey, we need to save all of our energy just in case, right? Just in case something bad happens. So in this situation, what you need to do is you actually need to take action. You need to be taking massive action towards your goals. And this is why point number one, I really want you guys to create that letter. Create a letter that's going to help you to see, have I been honest with myself? Have I been cheating on anxiety with confidence? That is what I want you guys to do. And this last point that I want to make, it's all about how anxiety loves to discredit your past successes. And the reason why is because anxiety knows that if you ever got confidence, their butt would be out the door. Anxiety knows that, hey, if I can keep them believing that they're not as good as they think they are, or that the worst thing is going to happen, they know that you're going to fall and cater to them every single chance that you get. And that's not what we want to do. You know, what's funny is that with my group and then also my newsletter list, I had them write a journal to themselves. And in that journal, I asked them, what is their relationship like with their mind? And in this podcast, I want you guys to ask yourself, what is your relationship with your anxiety? Because here's the thing, there's a good chance that your anxiety is something that you have a love relationship with and also maybe a hate relationship with. Now, the thing is, it's up to us to determine what our anxiety is allowed to get away with. Because if your anxiety is get away with murder, then it's probably on you to set that boundary. If you're not aware that your anxiety is actually something totally different from you, you're someone that I would call, unfortunately, a puppet. And your anxiety is the puppet master telling you everything that you need to do, making every single decision for you. And that is not the life that we want to live. Anxiety actually hates the proof of concept. It hates when you know how good you really are. Because once they do, they know you're out the door looking for your next spouse, looking for your next partner. And like I said at the beginning, there's a good chance your next mate, right? The next person you start to date is going to be confidence. So real quick, I'm gonna go over these 3 main points that I made in order to help you guys to break up with your anxiety. So the first point that I made is that anxiety hates clarity. And what this means is that you guys have to stop being inconsistent, indecisive, and hesitating with all the things that you want out of life. Be specific and write those things down. Again, I want you guys to write that letter to yourself and then schedule it to be sent to you in the future. Now, if you struggle with the email piece, you can write it on a sheet of paper and then just set a reminder in your phone. So in your calendar, set a reminder like, hey, go back and read this letter that I put in my closet. And on that letter, you can write 1 year reminder to myself or future letter to myself, anything like that. The second point that I made is that anxiety hates action. Anxiety hates when you're taking moves, taking action, kicking butts and taking names and all that stuff. And the reason why is because when you hesitate, when you procrastinate, you're telling yourself these stories that you're not ready, you don't have time, you don't have energy, and that is a complete lie. So I want you guys to actually start taking massive action and following up with the things that you just wrote about in that letter that we just mentioned. And then last, guys, anxiety hates proof of concept. It needs you to believe that you're not good enough and that you're absolutely nothing without them. And what's actually scary about that is that there are actually really bad people out there that would make you believe that you can't do anything outside of them. These people are very manipulative and controlling, and there's a good chance you probably ran into one of those in your lifetime. And you know what to do with those type of people. So my name is Coach Wells. Thank you for checking out this podcast. And don't forget to hit the subscribe button. And again, if you leave a comment, I will definitely go back and answer it full in depth. All right, guys, I'll see you later.